Hey, so do any of you want to win the league? Nah. The worst title fight in football history, and at the same time, the greatest. I present to you the championship. This might as well become a championship fan channel now. I present to you our three contestants, Leicester City, Ipswich Town and Leeds United. With 4 games left to go before the end of the season, if I was to ask you how many wins combined between these three teams in the last 3 games, how many wins do you think they've gathered? One win between all these 3 teams that are currently in the top 3. No one wants to win the championship. And for good reason. What do you get by winning the championship? Well, you get more money, of course, so yay, but also promotion to the Premier League. Looking at the likes of Burnley and Sheffield United, and even Luton Town, I can see why they don't want to be there. Comment down below your thoughts on the championship, and why do you think Leicester, Leeds and Ipswich Town are doing so poorly? Are they actually terrified of playing in the Premier League? Tell me down below. Smash the like button and also subscribe if you're new. And Vizeh Designs for the best football prints, proudly covering the entirety of the 92, all made by myself, and especially every single championship team. So link down below, use code EFL for 15% off. Let's start off with the worst of these 3, okay? Leicester City. Leicester City have a team that is so disastrously too good for the league that it's actually insulting that they've lost 10 games. Leicester City may be the only team in the history of football that I'm aware of that has won the league and will still sack their manager, Enzo Maresca. Now, you may have never heard of him prior to this season, but he is an Italian manager and is seen as the Italian Pep Guardiola. Not because he's good, but because he's bold. To add some context of how disastrous this has been for Enzo, that 2 months ago, Leicester City were, I believe, 17 points clear of 3rd place. They were 17 points into being promoted into the Premier League only 2 months ago. And when we look at the table now, and despite having a game in hand, to be 1 point behind 3rd place Leeds is a complete travesty and could be very much the biggest bottle job in history if Leicester City do not get promoted to the Premier League. And here's why. Well, let's look at their team. In terms of the market value of their entire team, it is 211 million euros compared to the first team out of the top 3 that got relegated, and it is literally half, with Hull City with 104 million euros, but that's considering the likes of Fabio Carvalho, who's there on loan. In contrast to the current rivals, Ipswich Town, they have a squad value of 50 million euros, directly a quarter of what Leicester City's squad is worth in the transfer market. Keep in mind one more important thing. Wages. Well, Leicester City have a ton of players that still are left over from their Premier League seasons. Now, what you see on screen is the annual wage bill of the championship back in August of start of the season. Now, of course, this may not be completely accurate because some players still may have gone and some players still may have left. However, this is to me, frankly, irrelevant. Even if you remove like 20 or 30 million of Leicester's wage bill and also Southampton's and Leeds, they still don't even come close to the 4th biggest wage bill in the championship of just a normal team, which is West Bromwich Albion. Not only is their squad value, the squad wages so far above anyone else's, but the players they've still got there is vastly too good to be at this level. Jamie Vardy, despite being 37, is still Jamie Vardy. Kieran Dewsbury Hall by no means should be still in the championship by any metric. They've still got the likes of Patson Daka still there that they brought to the club initially for 13 million euros. Of course, do not ask a Leicester fan what they think of Patson Daka, otherwise they may hit you in the face. Kelechi Iheanacho, Prayet, Harry Winks, Ricardo Pereira is still in the championship? Yeah, Ricardo Pereira, the guy that came from Porto for 22 million euros and was actually one of the best right backs in the Premier League and had a market value of 40 million euros back in the 18-19 season. Yeah, by the way, he's in the championship at age 30. Now, I need to make this clear. This is the championship where most teams are not spending even more than 5 million euros. And trust me, I'm very well aware of this. When Burnley got relegated and won the league last year, I understood this completely, that Burnley, despite having to rebuild an entire team, still spent around 20 million euros to go rebuild a team, which is a lot more than what anyone else could spend. Out of the entire championship, only around 7 teams spent more than 10 million euros in both transfer windows combined. There's teams like QPR and West Brom. West Brom, by the way, that spent 0 and only worked on loans and free transfers. Leicester, of course, made big profit on the likes of James Maddison and Harvey Barnes, which brought in almost 100 million euros. Now, as a Burnley fan, as we are going down to the championship, I kind of really want Leicester to get promoted because I kind of don't want to deal with you guys next year. However, it would be remarkably funny to see you guys not go up because this would be an absolute disgrace. Keep in mind, Leicester City, prior of 2 seasons ago, was in a European semi-final against Roma. Life is never boring being a Leicester fan, and if they do not go up, then Enzo may be kicked out of Leicester for life. To showcase how bad they really have been, to showcase the championship form table of the last 10 games, so that's a good length of games there. Guess where Leicester would be in the table? 19th. 10 points out of the last 30 available. That is disgusting. I spoke to some Leicester fans about Enzo Ball and what Enzo Ball means. Royal Leicester fan answered me and he said, one word, wank. So that's his thoughts on Enzo Ball. Leeds are falling apart. Hey, I can sing it. You guys sing it too. It's like that thing that you keep on calling your club really bad, but then when someone else calls your club bad, you act like it's an insult, as if you just ignore the fact you just called your own team bad. Leeds are a weird club, because Leeds have not been as bad as what it may seem. They've only just turned out to be quite bad in the last 3 games. Despite being 4th in the form table, they were in remarkable form coming towards the end of the season. This was all until they played Coventry. Now, Leeds are in the same camp of Leicester, of the fact they've got wages and transfer values of players that should not in any world be in a championship. Jorginho Rutter was brought into Leeds for 35 million quid. Okay? Now, there's no surprise in my mind that he's suddenly very good in the Championship. Somerville is a bit different, as he was brought in as an academy signing a couple of years ago from Netherlands, and he's grown into the role over the last year or so. So that's a bit more understandable. Wages is still way beyond anyone else in Championship, and their manager explains quite a bit. Daniel Farker, who has got multiple experience winning the leagues comfortably in a Championship for Norwich City, and is seen as pretty much a heavyweight in the entire league, and even he's struggling right now. In recent games against Blackburn, Sunderland and Coventry, it feels like Leeds have been running out of ideas and it seems too easy to play against them. Across the season, they have been pretty good other than just an awful start that they had. If their start was not as bad as it was, then they would have been comfortably ahead by now, but of course the league doesn't work that way. It was quite surprising to see the likes of Wilfred Nonto still staying at the club, alongside Somerville and also Jorginho Rutter. Patrick Bamford, despite being 30, is now being seen as an OAP, and now it's time for Ipswich Town, who have kind of unfortunately fallen into the worst title race thing, despite the fact they are actually still top of the form table, 20 points of the last 30. After winning 6 of the last 7 games, they lost to Norwich in the East Anglian Derby, and since then they've drawn 2 games on a bounce. Despite there being obvious hopes and expectations for Ipswich, no one expected this. I remember quite well back in July when I saw people hyping Ipswich to be in top 6, and I thought that perhaps they were maybe being a bit too far, as I still feel like it was too much of a stretch for the likes of Kieran McKenna, who's still a young manager, to do so well instantly with a team and finances that I felt like was a bit too much to ask for. But Christ almighty, he's done a fantastic job, hasn't he? Even if they somehow still don't go up this year, I still have full confidence that they'll be moving forward no matter what. If you're just a fan that supports a team in Premier League, you may not really know of any of their players if I just say the name to you. The main key players being like Leif Davis, Connor Chaplin, Sam Morsey, Larongo. It may surprise you that they're doing so well, and that's all thanks down to Kieran McKenna, who's built a really strong following and a really core group of players that all plays and fights for the badge and all committed to the cause, playing great attacking football and realistically is massively punching above their weight. But that is absolutely the beauty of the Championship. We saw something quite similar last year to Luton Town, who was again punching above their weight in a different style to Ipswich Town, but went up against the odds. I remember 2-3 years ago, the likes of Barnsley went up into playoffs and then went down the year afterwards because they had a fantastic season and fantastic momentum behind them. And don't forget as well, this was a 3-horse race for the last month or so until Southampton's decided to finally win some games. With only 3-4 games left to go, Southampton are still a game in hand, and they can still get promoted and still win the title, as Southampton still has to play Leicester, but most importantly, they play Leeds away on the final day. It is very likely that whoever wins that final game will be promoted to the Premier League. If you're asking me personally right now, who do I think will win the league, it's a really tough question to ask, because realistically, it can be any of these 4 teams. It may be really boring, but I still think Leicester are going to win the league, but I think it would be incredibly tough, and they've made a massive hash of it. They typically are very good at home, and their last 4 freedom are at home, and the one away is away at Preston. I feel like they will have have enough to get over the line. And then it's for me a straight shootout between Southampton, Ipswich and Leeds, because Southampton have really got it all in their hands to go and try to do something special here. Ipswich with Hull and Coventry away will be really tough games, and I can see them dropping points to both Hull and Coventry, simply as both are still fighting for the playoffs. However, it is still quite a narrow chance of being in the playoffs. They are still there. So if it goes down to final day between Leeds and Southampton, I'm going to go for Leeds. I'm going to say Leeds and Leicester, and it may sound really, really boring. However, I kind of want them to go up anyway, so that we don't play them next year in Championship. This means that in my ideal dream world, Ipswich should be 3rd, Norwich should be 6th, and we get an East Anglian derby in the semi-finals. Therefore, meaning with Southampton v West Brom, I think Southampton will have enough to go through. Therefore, I think in my ideal world, because Ipswich usually always lose to Norwich, I think it'd be a Norwich v Southampton playoff final. And then between those two, I don't know why in my mind, it just makes sense. I'm going to go Norwich. Why do I think Norwich should do well? Well, they have Ashley Barnes. Upper Clarets.